Hey, what's up? It's robert.balasabas here. Welcome to another episode of the Coffee with Creators podcast. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, good to see you here on YouTube. You're probably seeing the video version of the podcast. You can actually tune into the podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple and Google and all that, all of the podcast platforms. Just head over to the link somewhere in the description and you can find the audio podcast if that's easier for you to consume. And so glad to have you here. Wanted to just share a thought of the day. I had a conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine who asked me, this question, which is really very common. What podcast? I want to start a podcast. What should it be about? All right. And so I'm going to dive into that. And so let me actually share my screen. So if you guys are watching this, like I said, if you're listening to this on the audio version, then you can always catch the video version over on YouTube, okay? And all the links are going to be in the show notes and in the description. Before we get started though, I want to say thank you to our friends over at Spreadshop. You guys are probably familiar with Spreadshop by now. They are sponsors of the podcast here, so I want to give them some love. Shout out to my man DJ Kaufman over there. Spreadshop is a free print-on-demand merch shop where you can simply just sign up, create an account. You guys can see it here. Just open up a Spreadshop account. You can upload your designs, lay out your products. They have tons of inventory, sweaters, mugs, shirts, all sorts of stuff. And then set your prices and away you go. You can start selling your merch. And so I will talk a little bit more about that in just a few minutes, but I wanted to jump into this thought of the day here, which is this question that my friend of mine asked me. And he said, what should I build my podcast about? Now, this is like I said, this is a common question. When I was building out my podcast, I was kind of like trying a bunch of different things. I was, creating tutorials, interviews. Now I've kind of settled into a nice sort of format, a nice groove where I have these, which is like my thought of the day, just answering very common questions for creators around building revenue streams. And that's what you can expect here. Now, I also do a lot of interviews. I speak to a lot of creators, a lot of industry experts in the creator economy space, and this is really what I enjoy doing, right? I enjoy talking to these people that are like-minded like me, that are in the same industry, that are in the same space. We're kind of looking at the same thing, but they look through things through a different lens. They look through things from a different perspective, and that's what I really enjoy, right? And so some of the things that I shared with my friend here in terms of answering this question for him, because I know him pretty well. The first thing was, what are the topics? I'm not going to jump ahead here. What are the topics? I don't know why I keep jumping ahead. What topics do you enjoy talking about? So if you're thinking about launching your own podcast, think of what are the topics that you enjoy talking about, whether it's, growth marketing or product marketing, or it could be, the fashion industry. What part of the fashion industry? It could be the creator economy, statistics, for the folks out there that are maybe startups, right? Crypto. I don't know. What are these topics that you enjoy talking about? And then also, outside of that, think outside. There's the core topics that you're thinking about, right? Which is so easy. Those are easy. Those are like typically, what are the things you do for work, right? What are those day-to-day things? Could be, but then think outside of that. Think outside, just one level, one circle outside of the core topics, such as like wellness. It could be, building a remote team, being a remote worker yourself, right? Management, right? What are you doing outside of your core work, right? It could be, work-life balance, right? How are you managing that? Being a parent while working full-time, right? It could be, finance. It could be like, how do you manage your finance, as a parent, or, whatever that could look like, right? And then basically, I would suggest that you then take these ideas and these topics that you enjoy talking about and really try to boil them down, right? Really try to boil them down, and make a list of the 10 topics that you enjoy talking about, regardless of the audience size. This is really important. In terms of podcasting, I think probably it's a really important thing to note here that when you're starting a podcast, you may have a lot of people tuning in right away. Maybe you have an audience on Instagram or on YouTube or your email list that, hey, like I have a podcast. You let them know through those channels and away you go. Your podcast is already like popping up, right? It's already, highly engaged, highly listened to. But if you're just starting a new channel, typically what happens is that you don't have that many people listening quite yet, right? Just like when you start a YouTube channel or an Instagram account, TikTok, you may not have a large audience quite yet. Now, this is when it comes to podcasting versus, those other, social media or, discoverability platforms like YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. Podcasts, typically, you don't have the help from the platform, the podcast platform, to be discovered. People may be searching and you can like optimize your podcast, your titles, your description and all that. And people may find you and discover you on Spotify, on, Apple Podcasts and things like that. But for the most part, you have to do a lot of the promotion yourself. And so you may not have a huge audience. It's just the reality of it for most of us. You may not have a huge audience right out of the gate when you launch your podcast. So I want you, if you are starting a podcast, to make a list of the 10 topics that you would enjoy talking about regardless of the audience size. Okay? Now, make that list, right? If you want, send it to me. I would love to hear. I would love to keep you accountable. Make that list of 10 topics. It doesn't have to be super specific. Just what are the 10 topics that you would enjoy talking about regardless of the audience size. Now, the next thing you want to know, or sort of think about, think about, is who and what are the people that you would enjoy interviewing? Who do you want to talk to, right? Who do you want to talk to? I think that's really important. So what type of people would you enjoy interviewing? Now, it could be other people in your industry. For me, it could be other partnership managers. It could be other head of partnerships, people that are doing influence marketing, right? Talent managers, things like that. It could be other creators for myself, right? I'm just using myself as an example here. It could be other creators, other content creators, other YouTube creators, other podcasters, right? Other social media folks. That could be it. Or it could be other people that are like outside of that. It could be, for me, I'm a head of partnerships is my day-to-day job. Or is my day job, not day-to-day job. Head of partnerships is my day job. And so I could speak to somebody in product marketing. I could speak to somebody in VP of sales. I could speak to somebody that is complementary to what I do, right? And that would also make sense. So you just need to think about who are the type of people that you would enjoy interviewing. I think interviews are a great format. It's a great format for podcasts. It's always nice to either have an interview or a co-host or somebody that you can kind of bounce a conversation with. Podcasting solo can also be good, but it's a little bit more challenging if you're not used to talking by yourself. Like I guess I am. I talk by myself all the time on this podcast. Every now and then, I would say 50% of the episodes on this podcast that you're listening to right now is me talking by myself, sharing an idea, maybe answering a question. So if you're comfortable doing that, fantastic. But you should always also use the podcast as a way to interview other people, not just for good content, but also as a way to network. Now, we can talk about that in another episode. I would love to dive deeper into using podcasts to network and grow your network. I think it's a great strategy for doing that. It's a great platform for doing that and having those deeper, longer conversations with people that you want to get to know. Okay? And so now that you have your 10 topics, now that you've thought about who you want to interview, you then need to think about your story. What is your story? What's your story with your podcast, right? Who are you? Why should people listen to you? A lot of people may come across your podcast and they don't know who you are necessarily. So you need to kind of craft your story. This is going to help you with the introduction of your podcast, how you introduce yourself, and also how people will then, that are new to listening to your podcast, will get to know you and say, hey, this is somebody that I want to listen to. This is somebody that I want to get to know. Podcasts, I find, versus say YouTube or Instagram Reels or other platforms, podcast is unique in that it is long form. You're in my ear all like the entire 10, 15, maybe 40, 60, sometimes longer minutes. And I'm really getting to know you pretty well. And so I want to know who you are, and what's your story, right? And so that can be your personal story. That can be your professional story, right? And you tell that story, and you want to keep telling that story over and over again, little bits of it. And I'll tell you just in the next slide here, but little bits of it always as you move into your episodes, move through your episodes all the time. You want to share a little bit of yourself. You want to be a little bit vulnerable. You want to be real with your audience, and you want to take advantage of that time that you're spending with your audience by sharing something about you so they get to know you better and you build a deeper relationship. I think a lot of creators now, traditionally, that were on YouTube, have started audio podcasts and video podcasts for this reason, to build a connection, a deeper connection with their audience. And with YouTube, for example, you need to have all of these algorithms, these metrics like watch time and retention, and so it's like fast, go, quick cuts, jump cuts, whereas a podcast allows you to breathe, slow down, have a conversation, pause, and really go deeper into a topic, have a longer conversation with your guest, answer questions in depth without having to worry about watch time and retention time. Most people that are listening to podcasts, they're playing it in the background, they're playing it while they go for a walk, while they're working out, while they're driving, while they're working, in the background. I think I said that already. So it's very much long form content is very acceptable, and the platform was not going to penalize you, because it's people that's choosing to listen to your podcast, subscribe to your podcast, and listen to it on a regular basis, right? So you want to keep reminding people of that story. So you need to have that story. You need to think about your story. Who are you? Where did you come from? How did you get here? Right? And what are you doing now? So your past, present, and your future. What's your goal? What's your mission with the podcast? What's your mission with your work and the message that you're trying to convey, right? It's similar to when we have conversations around courses and memberships. What's the ideal outcome of the thing that you're creating? And something that, with courses, I want to take this person, by taking this course, for example, right? We take that course example. After this course, I want you to be able to go from this stage or this, place to a new place. There needs to be that sort of, transformation that needs to happen. Similar to memberships, right? I want to take you from this place to this place, right? I want you to take you from being on the couch to being fit and being on the beach, right? With your shirt off, right? Like, for the men out there. And so that's what you want to do. So the same thing with your podcast. Hey, this podcast is where you're going to learn how to build multiple revenue streams and become a full-time content creator, right? That's my hope for this podcast anyway. So that is crafting your story. And then finally, I want you to record episode 0. Episode 0 is very important. It's not your first episode, it's episode 0. Literally probably 60 to 120 seconds, right? A minute and a half to 2 minutes, just about your story, who you are, where you came from, how you came about building this podcast. What was the that aha moment, like, hey, I should build a podcast, I should share this with the world, and launch that and share that. That's your episode 0. This is also where you want to set your expectations of how many episodes are you going to be publishing. How many episodes will you be publishing every week or every month? Will you be doing interviews? Will you be doing Q&As? How can I reach you if I want to, ask you a question or make a suggestion? This is what episode 0 is going to be about. So you want to record your episode 0. And if you guys have any questions on how to do that, let me know. We've got some really cool resources on how to do that. And that's really, really it. You want to start with episode 0. Now, like I said, going back to the very beginning here, you got to make that list of 10 topics that you would enjoy talking about regardless of the audience size. No matter what, no matter how big the audience is, how small the audience is, you want to make sure that you are cool with not even having anyone listen, right? And having a small audience in the beginning, all right? So again, to recap here, what topics do you enjoy talking about? Make a list of 10 topics that you would enjoy talking about regardless of the audience size. Who and what type of people would you enjoy interviewing? Because you should be interviewing on your podcast. That's my personal opinion. No matter what, I think you should always be speaking to somebody on a regular basis. You should use that opportunity to grow your network. And then craft your story. And then, finally, as we launch this and you start thinking of your podcast, work towards that episode 0. All right? Episode 0. It's very important. All right? So that's my thoughts here in terms of this question as far as what should I build my podcast around. Those are my thoughts of the day around that. And again, I want to thank our friends over at Spreadshop. Big thank you to Spreadshop. There is a link in the show notes to get started. Again, Spreadshop is a free on-demand merch shop. You simply just need to sign up, upload all your designs, lay out your products and your prices, and you can start selling merch today. You can also embed a Spreadshop into your own website. And if you already are using a WordPress-based website, there's also plugins for that to make it even easier. And then for all the YouTubers out there, we were talking about YouTube and podcasting and everything. For all the YouTubers out there, Spreadshop has an integration that connects to YouTube Shopping. And so if you have over 1,000 subs, as of today, you need 1,000 subs. If you have 1,000 subs, then you can turn on this feature and you can have your merch showing up below your videos on YouTube, your own merch shelf. All right. So love Spreadshop. Thank you, Spreadshop, for sponsoring and supporting this podcast. It makes it possible for us to reach all of these people and help you all with your content creation journey, your content creation businesses. And so thank you again for listening. And if you guys have any questions, make sure you reach out to me. Connect with me. I got a message yesterday from somebody that was listening. I got a DM message on I got a DM on Instagram just reached out and said, hey, I've been listening to the podcast. I appreciate the way that your tone and like the way that you deliver and very casual. I was just like, yeah, it's like so awesome to hear, guys. It's just makes my day. So reach out to me on Instagram or on LinkedIn, and I would love to hear from you. And yeah, hopefully that gave you some ideas for your podcast today with this thought of the day. All right, I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.